All right, begin your practice today in a seated position. You can come to Virasana, hero pose, sitting between your heels, or Vajrasana, sitting on your heels, or even sitting cross-legged with your legs crossed in front of you. Focus on your breath for just a few moments and check in with your practice to be in the present moment of your movement, of your breathing practice, of your yoga practice. Notice the flow of your breath in and out of your nose, moving from your belly, expanding through your back, three-dimensionally up and down your torso. Be aware of any sensations in your physical body and pay attention to those as you move through each pose. And start to move your head around if you want to take some neck rolls, shoulder rolls, any stretches in your neck, ear to shoulder, chin to chest. And continue to move your head around slow with the pace of your breath leading. So I'm practicing Jalandhara Bandha, chin to chest. And then inhale, release. And as I exhale, chin to chest. And you can practice ear to shoulder, or just simply breathing without movement. All right, let's come into tabletop pose, hands and knees. And continue the breath-guided movement. Exhale as you round your spine. And as you inhale, sit back, open your chest a little bit. Keep the chin to chest. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, round your spine. And feel that push up of your muscles from below, chin to chest, and then sit back towards your heels. Toes are still tucked. Open your chest a little, but there's still a rounding in the back. Inhale back up into table. And then one more time, really round your spine. Exhale, push the back away. Push your back up to the ceiling. And then take your hips back to your heels. Open your chest a little, keeping your ears between your arms. Inhale back up to table. Okay, this time let's lift up into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lift your hips. Feel your chest soften. And feel the breath moving into your back ribs here, expanding through the back muscles. So trying to stretch out the back really long. Prepare for our plow pose. Here you can feel your hamstrings opening. Okay, walk up to the top of your mat to a forward bend, Uttanasana. Getting a little deeper into the hamstrings and the back. You can grab opposite elbows. Try to distribute the weight over the front ends of your feet more than the heels. And any hand variation here that you like. If you want to interlace your fingers behind your head and stretch your chin to your chest a little bit more, that'll get the back line open again. So focusing on stretching your back muscles as well as your hamstrings here, not just the hamstrings. And you can always bend your knees if you need more assistance with that. Take a half lift as you inhale, lift up. Exhale, fold. Inhale as you step back with your left foot. Then lower your left knee down. Exhale. Stretch your right leg out and open into half split. Inhale, open your chest. You can use blocks here under your hands. And here we're going to focus on getting into the hamstrings a little bit more than the back muscles. So think about extending your chest through your shoulders and maintain some softness in your heart as you do this. So it's not overextending. And pull your right toes up. You can push them out and notice how those modifications affect the feeling in the back of your leg and the sensation in the stretch. Okay, place your hands back to the floor so you can step back into downward facing dog, right leg coming back to meet the left in down dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. You can lift your heels, you could bend your knees, again, just trying to get the length in the spine. Okay, lower your knees down, inhale. Take your head in as close to your knees as possible. We're going to move this into a rabbit pose. Hands are on the floor like tripod. Lift your hips up over your knees and roll over towards the back of your head. And you could put a blanket under your head if you need some padding. You really feel that stretch from the low back, sacrum, all the way up to the back of your head, the base of your skull. Good, and then inhale, sit back. Come back up to table. Downward facing dog, exhale. And step forward with your feet into forward bend, Uttanasana. Take your inhale to get there so that you could then exhale into a nice forward bend. All right, half lift, use your back muscles to lift your chest up. Fold, exhale, Uttanasana. Right leg's going to step back this time, inhale, lower your right knee down, exhale. And then start to straighten out your left leg, open your chest, find your blocks. Feel centered on the back of your left heel. Feel centered on the front of your right knee. Pad that up if you need with a blanket. And then notice if you're rounding your back out, and if that feels good, fine. You can drop your chin in, and that really takes it into the hamstrings a lot too. So you could definitely add the back in here, but we really want to focus on the hamstrings for now and open the chest. So play with those movements to see what feels best for your body. Sometimes opening the chest too much can put a pinching in your low back. Again, so maybe you need that slight rounding. All right, and then rebend your left knee, and your hands can come back down to the floor. Step back to downward facing dog. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. As you inhale, feel the space. As you inhale, feel your hips lift. Okay, knees to the floor. And flip your toes back. We're going to take rabbit again, Shashangasana. Grab your heels this time if you can. Again, rolling over the top of your head. And take your head in closer to your knees if you can. So you can feel the grip of your fingers on your heels pulls the upper back open. So now you can feel that stretch in the mid-upper back more. Release back to seated on your inhale, hips back to your heels. You can take child's pose for a moment to rest. Slowly start to roll back up, hands and knees. And then let's come to seated position. Grab 2 blocks, and we're going to place those 2 blocks behind your knees or behind your hamstring, lower hamstrings. So the knees are bent, and then you can fold out over your legs. You could also put a blanket under your sit bones if you feel like you need extra height there. But do let your sit bones just kind of stretch out behind you. Let your back round here. Your forehead can come down to your knees that are lifted, or if you have a blanket or an extra block, rest your forehead on that. Relax your legs here. So just let this be a relaxing forward bend for a few moments. Focus on your breath moving into your back, expanding the back rib cage. All right, then we're going to start to slowly lift up out of that. Walk your hands back in. Remove the blocks out from underneath your legs. You can cross over to hands and knees, or you can come up to stand and step back into downward facing dog. So I'm moving through table and then lifting knees and then pressing back up. Downward facing dog. Just a moment to ground, recenter, and reconnect to being in this perspective. We're going to come back up to stand in a moment. We'll walk your feet up to your hands and fold. Exhale. Inhale, come all the way up. So soft bend in your knees since this is the first time. And then reach up with a big inhale. And exhale, release your arms. All right, grab your yoga belt if you've got a belt handy, or any other kind of resistance band or anything you can find that can make a loop. You might have to play with the length of the loop, but it's going to be about from the hip to your feet. So place the loop around your body once you get it long enough that you can maybe shorten it down. So if you start with slightly bigger, it'll be a little easier to clamp it down. And get the buckle handy so that you can use one of your hands. So have it on the sides so that you can shorten it or lengthen it. Then with the belt around your mid-back, you're going to step under or place it under your toes and step onto the belt with the balls of your feet. You want the belt to be short enough so that you can press up into it with your back, with the low back ribs. So it's not really coming to your sacrum, it's coming to the mid-rib section, the lower mid-rib section. And then place the weight of your pose into the balls of your feet. And if the belt is pinching your toes, you might just have to separate your toes manually. And use your hands wherever they want to go. So you can take hands to blocks or behind. You can grab opposite elbows. But feel the push into the belt so you're activating your core. And plow pose can be a really intense forward bend and inversion. If we don't use the muscles to protect the neck, it seems dangerous. So it's supposed to be a powerful position. This is teaching you that muscular engagement. All right, start to bend your knees. Take the belt out from underneath your feet and come into a bent knee, half forward bend with your hands resting on your thighs. Then inhale the rest of the way up. And take the belt off, set it aside. Samastitihi, reach your arms up on your inhale, Urdhva Hastasana. Fold, exhale, Uttanasana. And take a step back, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lengthen out your back, lengthen out everything. Lengthen out your hips, your thighs, your arms. Feel the space. All right, down to your knees. And then we're going to come back to seated again. And take your legs out in front. Okay, grab a blanket. We're going to set this pose up. We're going to kind of do the same thing that we just did earlier, like a forward bend, but on your back. So the blanket is going to come folded in a big square underneath your shoulders and your elbows. So the blanket's big enough so it supports the entire upper arm bone and your head is not on the blanket. Grab 2 blocks and start with 1 block under your sacrum, feet on the floor. And pull the block up close enough to up higher so that you can reach down with your fingertips and hook the blocks. And then a second block if you can when you're ready. If you're using 2 blocks, have them both be on their shortest height so they're not wobbly. And then reach your hands down and hook the blocks with your fingers. And this is going to start to train your shoulders for that rolling in motion and the shoulder support that is required in plow pose, Halasana. So you could have your elbows on the floor with your fingers pointing up. You could have your arms straight down, again, hooking the block with your fingers. But we want to work on an external rotation of the upper arm bone. So whichever of those arm variations makes that easier. And then here you're breathing into the front of your body. So feel the open space expand as you breathe. All right, we're going to add on to this as you're ready. 1 knee comes in, 1 foot up off the floor, and then the second. And if you feel like the blocks need to be moved, you can put your feet back down and adjust the blocks. But here we've got legs up in the air. So here we're moving just a little bit closer to that forward bend in plow pose. So now there's more weight back in your shoulders, less weight in your feet. We're just inching our way there. Again, you're going to work on getting your shoulders closer underneath your spine. So your shoulders are your foundation and your arms are your foundation, not your head and neck. Your head is touching the floor, but it's soft and the back of your neck is long. Okay, next I'm going to move right into this reclining forward bend. So again, we're just inching our way there. I use the blocks to push down onto to get some leverage to take feet overhead. Another option is to separate those blocks out, one under each hand, widen them out off your mat, and push down into the block for work. So again, like I said, this is a working pose. It's not a resting pose on your neck. And fire up your legs here. Remember the belt that you had between your feet and your back, and kind of push into that, like try to recreate that sensation of having that belt between your feet and your ribs. All right, slowly lower back down. And we're actually going to get the belt and make it happen. So you don't have to imagine it. You can really feel it. But take a moment here to rest on your back with your feet on the floor, as long as you need. And then grab your belt. Okay, so you're going to put the belt behind you just like you did in the standing version. So here we are. We're recreating the standing forward bend on the back. So the belt's in the middle, lower area of your spine, of the ribs, and then you're going to put those blocks back under your hips if they were helpful to get up into plow pose. If you don't need the blocks, you don't need to use them. But the blocks are nice to have here just for, like I said, a little stepping stone, inching into it. Then take your knees into your chest, place your feet into the belt, and with the blocks under your hips, you can start to straighten out your legs, and this feels really nice. So this is a modified plow pose right here. And if you know that getting your feet over your head is not the way you're going to go, then don't do it. And stay here, 2 blocks under your hips. Again, you can move them in a little closer if you need. But you are pushing into the belt with your feet, and you're pushing back into the belt with your ribs. If you can get those blocks in close enough under your sacrum, you can take your hands down and hook the ends of the blocks with your fingers. Again, trying to externally rotate your shoulders and space out your neck. So you could stay here for your plow pose. This could be your expression of plow, and enjoy it. Be in the present moment and enjoy what you're feeling here. Check in with those physical sensations. Or you could start to push down into your blocks and take your feet up overhead. And here again with the belt, feel the connection between your back ribs and your feet and the core engagement that protects the weight on your neck. Hands can be on the blocks, or you could put a block up under your feet so your feet don't have to be on the floor. And then your hands can press down on the floor. You might even be able to wiggle your arms closer together and interlace your fingers. But just enjoy this. If that just seems like too much work and too much effort, you can just enjoy the pose. But here's why the blanket is important: to be big enough to support the entire upper arm bone, so that if you do take your hands together, your elbows and shoulders are on the same surface. And then using a block is another great modification. If you can't get the fingers to interlace, take a block between your hands. And that can be like an adapter, like a connector. To come out of this, you are going to have your hands on the floor, those blocks, and roll back down nice and slow. Hips to the floor. And then you can reach up, grab your belt, bend your knees, and take your feet into bound angle. So you're going to pull your belt in between your knees and tighten the belt up for Supta Baddha Konasana. And if it is easier to come to seated and adjust the belt, it's fine. Go ahead and do that. I was trying not to get out of this little chill reclining mode. All right, and then you're going to try to get your feet up and as close to your hips as you can, feet together, open your hips. You can open your arms. The belt's creating a gentle resistance for your low back. So the blanket, then you could roll it up and take it across your shoulder blades. So your shoulders come open onto the floor, and this pops your chest up. So this is a really good counter pose for shoulders, or for that plow pose that you did. It kind of opens your neck up without taking, a fish pose, which is a nice pose. It's a lovely pose, but sometimes it's more work than it's worth. Situate the blanket where it feels comfortable. The blanket can be a small roll or a larger roll. And you can open your arms up and feel the length in your throat now. So breathe up into the open areas here, noticing that those open areas are your front, inner hips, inner thighs, your belly, ribs and chest. And the inner arm lines are open, and the front of your throat is open. So breathing up that entire line, imagining your breath can even move out through your arms. Knowing that the breath itself doesn't move out there, but the oxygen and the energy does through the blood. And so feel that tingling sensation, the sensation of being alive, and breathing into your body. The energy and the space that you created from plow pose. Just going to be here for a few more moments. If at any point in time you feel like there's too much pull on the inner thighs, place a couple blocks, one under each thigh. Give your legs a little extra support for the next few rounds of breath. All right, so just start to think about moving your fingers and take a nice big inhale just to get your body moving again. Take your hands up, release your belt, remove the belt off to the side. And then we're going to use that blanket, or if you have a pillow or some kind of a bolster that is small and not too high or thick, you're going to slide it right under your hips, under the sacrum. And take your feet a little wider apart with your knees in the air or resting towards each other. And pause here for just a moment, releasing that back bend. And take your knees to the left and the right real slow. So we're going to go to the right side, up, left side. Inhale up. And then hug your knees into your chest and take a twist off to the left. So those windshield wipers, if they feel better, stick with those. If you want to move into a tighter little twist here, you can hug your knees up a little closer and try to get your left hip and most of the left thigh bone on the blanket. You can open your arms out in a T shape. And you can use your left hand to just anchor your right thigh if that feels comforting. And then take your feet back over to the floor and realign your hips if you did shift them off to the side to get your hips on the blanket. Again, a little windshield wiper right and left, side to side, with your feet far apart. Okay, and then you can shift your hips over to the left, hug your knees in, and take your knees off to the right. So shifting your hips over to the left, you can feel your right hip, and most of the right thigh on the blanket. Again, your left arm can open out and anchor, palm up, open the left side of your body, and breathe into that with your breath. Imagine that space being filled up with your inhale. And again, if you want to use your right hand to anchor your left thigh, another breath or two here. And take your feet back to the floor and lift your knees back up. And shift your hips back through center. You can just rest here for a moment and realign out of the twist. All right, so take your blanket down underneath your knees. This is one option to move into a resting position. We're going to move into Shavasana. So you could have that blanket roll under your knees. Or you can take the blanket roll under your back. I'm going to take this into more of a back bend. So I'm going to take the blanket roll lengthwise up and down my spine. My head is on the blanket. And then you could either keep your knees bent, revisit bound angle with your feet, or open your legs out. I like to really open up and take up as much space as I can, just kind of spread out like a big star. Then I also like to reach up under the blanket and just kind of pucker up the areas under my neck and create more of a neck pillow so it's supported, so my head's not craning back too far. And then just focus in here on your breath, moving over the entire body, moving into all the spaces. Really taking the time here to check in with your sense of awareness, being in the present moment, and feeling your practice in your body, feeling your breath in your body, and taking rest. You're always welcome to stay longer if you want to take more time in Shavasana. When you're ready, you can start to move around. Take your feet to the floor, one hand to your heart, one hand to your belly, and hold some gratitude here in these two spaces for all that you do here and everywhere. And tell yourself thank you.